So my name's Philip Lamb, and I'm part of the mixed reality research group at Mozilla. So by mixed reality, we use that as a term to cover both virtual and augmented reality and the full spectrum in between, because these areas share many of the same tools and techniques and code. So mixed reality sits inside Mozilla's Emerging Technologies division, and our mandate in emerging technologies is to identify technologies that have the power to transform the way people interact over the web and to develop those and bring them to market. Before we get to the fun part, though, I'd really like to start with this question. As a developer, why should I care about mixed reality? It's a fair question to ask. One obvious answer might be that there's good business in mixed reality. But we can flip that around and say, why are businesses investing and what are their expectations? So to answer this question, I'm going to rewind a little bit and bear with me for a few minutes here. In the last years, computing has worked its way into almost every area of every business process in a real technological revolution. But increasingly, we face the sometimes overwhelming complexity that computing has introduced. The demands on workers are higher than ever, and often it's difficult to train or to get workers into the situations where they have the information they need to do that work. Particularly, computing power has massively increased in 50 years, but the interfaces to computing is still often stuck with the same 50-year-old interface of screens, keyboards. So we can scale up control systems like this one, or the Dubai baggage handling system, to try and manage some of the complexity, but there's very little access that a worker out in the field has to this information. So we have a new problem that the control domain is separated from the information domain. So mixed reality proposes a radical reshaping of that interface. By going beyond the flat display, the mouse and the keyboard, we're able to combine the information domain with the control domain. This is not new, this revolution is already underway. And you'll see applications of this today in agriculture, heavy industry, logistics, medicine, many other areas. But we're still on the upward part of the curve here, and over the next decade we'll see the way that millions of workers interact with information change and be adapted by mixed reality. Nielsen, who produce good figures on these kind of things out of the United States, estimate that to the end of this year, businesses will have spent $10.6 billion on R&D in mixed reality, which is up significantly from last year and estimated to rise to $12 billion next year. So even just consider enterprise spending in this area, there's a huge opportunity for developers and businesses here. So if you believe what I've told you and you think this is an interesting area to work in, then how do you get started in this area? So where do you pick up the tools? What are the skills? Who are your vendors and who are going to be your competitors? Well, the good news is that for anyone setting out to develop mixed reality experiences, or tools or content, 2019 is a great year to be started. We have a slew of really awesome new devices in the market this year, like the HTC Cosmos here, bringing super simple setup to PC VR. Many new standalone VR devices, newer types of controllers and interactions. And huge investments are continuing. $2.9 billion so far into Magic Leap. The American Big Four, Apple, Google, Facebook and Microsoft, all making billion-dollar bets in this area. And there's just some truly amazing content, and it's heaps of fun. You can try out Beat Saber and drive your pets nuts, or you can spend tens of hours at a go immersed in games like Subnautica. So if you're building a business, where do you start? Well, hopefully, if you're smart, you start with market segmentation. Where are you going to go for the money? These are the Nielsen figures for next year, the predictions for next year. Segmented here by virtual reality, mobile AR that you carry around with you, and headset-based AR. There's some pretty big figures there. Looking at gaming, mobile AR, $2 billion being spent in that segment. That's quite crowded. There's some other interesting ones there. So that sounds easy, right? Pick your segment, go for it. But if you're looking, say, just take VR for a moment, now you have to pick a platform. VR is ahead of AR market maturity at the moment, but you've got a bunch of decisions. Devices you're going to target. You're going to go for ones that connect to high-end computing. You're going to connect to ones that have standalone. What's your price point? You want to have it extremely accessible to people who have only a few dollars, or do you want people to be spending $1,000? Not all devices work with all delivery platforms, so your choice of platform is going to affect where you can sell. This comparison here is a reasonably comprehensive overview of VR headsets. Some of their metrics are not quite right, but you can go to this address and try out the chooser for yourself. Anyway, it's complex. And then it's only the start of the complexity, because you have to actually commit to a software platform too. There's a lot of development platforms, a lot of APIs, not much overlap between many of these. And once you've done that, did you make the right choice? Because even since I made this slide, one of these development platforms has been abandoned. That's Google Daydream. So choosing the platform has risks. And if you try to mitigate those risks by diversifying across platforms, your costs will go up. And the lock-in risks, let's not understate them, they're quite big. App stores create a few winners and a long tail of apps that get very little exposure. Perhaps the App Store will reject if you're on a platform that shies away from content. Or if you encroach on platform monetization features, so try to build your own network and Facebook's platform, you find that you won't get very far. Or you might invest in a platform only to find users abandoning it with things like privacy breaches or sensitive. And if you diversify, your fixed costs are going to go up per platform. You might also choose to outsource some of the risk. So there are great development environments like Unity, which reduce the platform complexity equation for you. It's a great tool. We use Unity at Mozilla as well. The tools might be attractive, but actually we've seen the risk in the past of tying our development platforms to proprietary tools. Any of you who've worked with the web probably consider that logo a bit of a dirty word, right? And the other thing is, I would guess that most of you do not wish to establish a games development team inside your business just to reuse your existing content. You have existing web content, you have existing web development teams, and you want a pipeline that works with those. Just apply it to a new application domain rather than having to make a large investment in tools that it's difficult to pivot away from. So the answer, of course, we believe, is to avoid walled gardens and to adopt standards-based platforms where there are multiple vendors. Going open source, of course, has additional benefits for the users if you choose to do that. So obviously, we at Mozilla are strong advocates of the open approach. And it might not seem immediately obvious how this intersects with mixed reality, but the open standards-based approach of the web has the ability to address many of these same things for mixed reality. The Mozilla mission is a great fit for the need to protect creators and users of immersive experiences from the risks of platform lock-in and fragmentation. And quite apart from that, mixed reality experiences build on some of the most intimate information about a user gaze, bodily motion, and so on. And it's our assertion that an open platform is the only way to protect that data from exploitation by bad actors. And that's something we put at the heart of everything we do at Mozilla. So, how are we actually doing this? So we are investing in a comprehensive, open, mixed reality strategy that covers user agents, content and tools, social, and standards and advocacy. So key in this strategy is a suite of full-featured browsers covering a range of platforms. We know that in order for the 3D web to be successful, we need to avoid the mistakes of mobile and provide a full-featured platform for deployment across different devices, form factors, and to optimize to allow developers to access the full capabilities of each platform. Secondly, we want to make it really easy to bring content to the 3D web. This includes creating frameworks and tools that allow for deployment or reuse of content from existing pipelines, that allow users to discover that content. And we're also experimenting with some of the missing pieces of the business model for web deployment, particularly for creative content. Thirdly, social mixed reality. This is where the true value of the web as a platform comes into play. Not only does this showcase the true value of an open platform, but it's one of the areas that gets users most engaged. And the fourth, often hidden area is standards and advocacy. Breaking down walled garden means investing time and effort in standardization. And this is not just a matter of creating a level playing field for vendors. It's also crucial in providing a platform on which to build features that can address things like accessibility via mixed reality techniques, that have the power to not only open the 3D web, but also the 2D web to users who might have traditionally been locked out from it. Mozilla is also a non-profit, and that directly gives money back to these efforts through a Mozilla open source support program, which I'll mention a little more about. The browser is obviously the key piece in our user agency column, and our Firefox Reality browser for standalone VR headsets is our flagship. It's built by a great team at Mozilla and uses the same full standards-based Gecko rendering engine you'll find in the desktop Firefox browser. And it comes pre-installed, in fact, on great VR headsets like those from HTC, a company headquartered here in Taiwan. Of course, because you're in VR, we allow you to view immersive video experiences delivered from sites like YouTube, Vimeo, and others. And so it's a great platform to deliver immersive video content on, and we feature that content front and center every time the user puts on the device. Our next release, Firefox Reality version 6, has got some features that we're really excited about, including one called Firefox Accounts, which links Firefox on your VR devices to Firefox on iOS, Android, Mac, and Windows machines. So it's really easy to get your content into the browser. The thing that makes it truly interesting to have a browser in VR, of course, is immersive interactive content delivered over the web. This is made possible by the WebVR and the upcoming WebXR JavaScript APIs. With WebVR and WebXR, there's no app to install. You just browse to a VR-enabled site, and boom, you're in VR. We feature some really interesting examples of this kind of content on our Firefox Reality homepage, and there are some awesome applications out there. It's really an ideal platform for delivery of content in a lot of areas. I've listed some of them here, and some of them will blow you away. We're also, interestingly, seeing that some applications have transformative results beyond what you might expect. We have one of our team members who takes VR experiences into aged care settings, and we find that people who engage with this kind of content in aged care settings experience improvements in engagement, quality of life, and mood, and a whole bunch of other things that you wouldn't normally expect. For people who've lived full and active lives, VR and mixed reality can help them to experience some of those things again. One other thing we're very proud of in our Firefox Reality product is the language support. We've worked really hard to build keyboards in a variety of scripts, including Pinyin and Shuin. I'm sorry, I can't type with the Shuin input method, so this is Pinyin. But I'm from New Zealand, and it's nice to show you how easy it is to search for nice places to visit. Of course, we know that typing in VR is hard and sometimes annoying, so all of our language support, you can also access voice search and the full browser interface in it. We're also excited to try out in this area novel interfaces as the devices begin to support them. For example, as eye tracking becomes more mainstream in VR devices, that you'll be able to try out gaze-based interfaces. And it again opens up a whole new type of computing for people who might not have the normal accessibility to hand-steered input. So from the second column on that slide, a moment ago, content. This area we're working really hard in, because we know that having a good pipeline to get content onto the web and allow users to discover it is really critical to the success of the 3D web. Mozilla in the past has made some great contributions to building frameworks for 3D on the web, and we've got some awesome new work in this area. We also work to build partnerships with companies across the web to ensure that our browsers are a great publishing platform for their tools and content, including names such as Amazon, Within, Microsoft, Sketchfab, Matterport, Delight VR, many others, large and small. So if you have content that you'd like us to feature, please make contact. The work in the XE project, which is a brand new publication from Mozilla, builds on our earlier work for frameworks such as 3JS for rendering and A-Frame for VR based on the document object model and using declarative component systems. Any of you who have a background in game design will recognize entity component systems. They're an approach to data-driven design with an emphasis on performance and small API service. So XE is an experimental framework written in pure JavaScript. It's graphics engine agnostic, and the community that's building up around this is busy integrating it with a variety of engines, some of which you can see mentioned at the bottom there. If you're a developer, I highly recommend reading the recent blog post in this area, which introduces the framework and its architecture. So one third project I'd really like to introduce to you is Hubs. This is Mozilla's web-based social VR platform. Hubs is one of those great projects that ties together all the other pieces of our mixed reality program. It's 100% web-based. It runs in a regular web browser, the browser you've got sitting on your knee or in your pocket, as well as the head-worn devices. So Hubs has a feature set that allows you to do many of the same kind of things you'd want to do in a face-to-face meeting online. You can use a microphone to talk or hear others. You can engage in normal privacy controls. You can create rooms from a library of different scenes, or create your own from custom elements in the online spoke editor, which is a cool tool on its own. We're constantly amazed by the scenes that people in our community build. If you want to, you can recreate a windowless conference room, a crazy loud conference floor, or go for something a bit more zany, like an old-timey inn. So Hubs is avatar-embodied communication. Research shows that that's a great way to break down some of the barriers people have to being online with others in a virtual space. You can apply all kinds of cool customization to your avatar to make it uniquely represent you. But the real power of Hubs is that it's just the web, and so you have the vast content of the web that you can bring into your rooms. 3D models from a variety of sources, video files, live streams. Once things are set up the way you like, you can get people into your room. Hubs integrates with Discord for great access management, so you can create private rooms, moderate them, or build a community around the space. So we've got some great features coming up, lined up, enterprise use of hubs, holding business meetings and that kind of thing. Or in the meantime, it'll just be a simple lot of fun. So jump online now and try out a hub through hubs.mozilla.com. So I mentioned the fourth critical piece of standards and advocacy that we're working on at Mozilla. So the big news in this area is the WebXR API, which we are collaboratively developing with many other browser vendors, including Google, Microsoft, Oculus, Magic Leap, Samsung, many other interested parties, HTC, NTT, SoftBank, Amazon, National Film Boards of Canada, many others, representing a full spectrum of people interested in immersive content. It's run under the auspices of the W3C's Immersive Web Working Group. So you can try the features of WebXR now via a polyfill library which builds on top of WebVR. But our goal is to provide initial WebXR support this December and support similar time to other browser vendors. There'll be multi-platform, multi-vendor support right at the start of the availability of WebXR. The WebXR's VR portions are just the start. WebXR includes a modular approach covering input devices, augmented reality, immersive accessibility, and a variety of other areas. So if any of you are familiar with the approach taken by the WebVR API, you'll find WebXR very accessible. And I'm not going to try and cover a worked example in this forum, but I'll direct you to the WebXR samples page, QR code there. The first example there, which gives you models in a VR experience, is only 100 lines of JavaScript, so it's super simple. My colleague at Mozilla, Eric Shepherd, has started work on some great WebXR documentation for the Mozilla Developer Network. I'd invite you all to take a look. There's some really great material there which helps with understanding the background and the full WebXR pipeline. In architectural terms, WebXR sits in a stack with several related APIs, most important of which is WebGL, since the WebXR API assumes that rendering is done to a frame buffer in a semantically appropriate way. But most applications will not directly use WebGL, probably build on a high-level API provided by a library, in particular 3JS or some graphics library to provide higher level of abstractions of components like concepts like projections, viewers, or models. Or you could go for a framework like A-Frame, which adds a complete declarative DOM-based scene model. It also handles abstractions such as viewer position and orientation, and provides you with means to query for those from the WebXR API. Underneath, obviously the browser is a key piece here that provides, that translates the API's JavaScript calls into native calls that run on the variety of platforms. So we do the hard work of simplifying the platform space for you. Different manufacturers have different ways of talking to the sensors, different types of sensors. So we also, of course, handle all the interaction with the graphics APIs needed to get the images from your drawing to the frame buffer for each eye as quickly as possible. So we know that developing and debugging WebXR isn't easy, especially because you might like access to the platform or devices. So we've created the WebXR emulator browser add-on, which allows you to view immersive VR content right in your desktop browser, the one you're using for development. So once you've installed this, you'll find a new tab in the Firefox Developer Tools labeled WebXR. And from here, if you navigate to a page that has WebXR enabled, for example, the Immersive Web Samples page, you'll see an option to enter XR. You'll be presented with a first-person view of the immersive environment and a third-person view of the emulated device and its controllers, where you can move the device or the emulated hands around, activate different inputs to trigger the actions that the WebXR code exposes. There's support for both 3 degree of freedom and full 6 degree of freedom devices with 1 or 2 controllers, as well as some of the simple cardboard-based options. So please download it and try it out. I'd also like to draw your attention to Mozilla's open source support program. Every year Mozilla puts millions of dollars into the hands of open source projects to help build resilience and capacity in this great big experiment that we call the open web. So there's several different categories of support. One that's really accessible is the foundational technology track. So that means if you are building software that gets built into a Mozilla product or gets used internally by Mozilla employees, you should consider applying for a MOS grant. The process is not onerous. We make awards every 2 months. There's still one more awards round this year. And they go to a variety of different projects, from fundamental tooling through to things like touch the mixed reality program. So Hubs, for example, includes many, many different web libraries, and we've supported some of those through MOS. So finally, on the topic of WebXR, I'd like to give you a sneak preview of some truly amazing work from 2 of my colleagues at Mozilla, Diego Guberna and Fernando Serrano. So what you're seeing is a showcase for tools and techniques of WebXR of the highest quality. So we think that a library of amazing user experience and design patterns is necessary for the healthy growth of WebXR. This experience is called Hello WebXR. When the full version is released, we know you're going to be amazed. The best part is that this whole thing is going to be available for you to pick apart, pick up and reuse. So we're really excited to develop some techniques that we hope to see in your experiences. So you're among some of the first people in the world to see this preview. This is not yet released, but please, if you'd like to try it out for yourself, jump onto the website mixedreality.mozilla.org and keep an eye on our blog. Some of these things are really fun. Looking forward to sharing with you. So that really concludes my presentation. I hope through my talk you've gained a little bit of insight into why we think mixed reality is important. We know that it's going to sweep away a lot of existing computing devices in this area, and we certainly hope that you'll join us in making this journey happen. If you have questions or need more info, mixedreality.mozilla.com, or please feel free to contact me personally. My email address is there. Thank you very much.
Thank you for sharing the